Hey gang, it's me again. It's me, Mrs. B, the book lady. I'm here to tell you again about the Iowa Children's Choice Award books. I just want to tell you that back in 1978 is when this award started. It was designed by the Iowa Association for School Librarians, and its purpose is to encourage kids to read more and a variety of good books and to recognize outstanding American authors. Now, what makes this award unique is that it is for Iowa kids by Iowa kids. So, this Iowa Children's Choice Award is designed for students in grades 3 through 6. And there are other awards for the other grades. But how it's by Iowa students? All of these 20 books that I'm going to be talking to you about today were nominated by students just like you from across the state of Iowa. So, as you're reading books this year, I want to point out to you that you can also nominate a book to be on next year's list. All you have to do is go to your library teacher and we'll see about if we can get that book on the list for next year. 2 rules though. It has to be a book that's written within the last 5 years, so all of these books are relatively new books, and 2, it has to be written by an American author. Now, here's for the fun part. If you read at least 2 or have read to you 2 books from the list, you will be able to vote for the winner, and we do the voting at the end of March. Now, I'm going to make sure that you each have a bookmark. The books are listed in alphabetical order by title this year. And first thing I want you to do is turn it over and put your name and homeroom on the back. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right down the list and tell you about each of these books. Now, if I tell you about a book that you think, I think I'd like to read this book, I want you to draw a circle around the title. If it's a book that you think, wow, I can't wait to read this book, then I want you to put a little star next to the title. Then the next time that you have the library, I want you to take this bookmark with you to the library, and then you'll have an idea of some of the books that you'd like to check out. Now, I have been reading these Iowa Children's Choice books now for 17 years. And what I do is all summer long, I read the books, and then in the fall, I do the book talks to try to get you excited about reading. And so, are you ready? Well, let's begin. And we are going to start right at the top of the list with the Ambrose Deception. Now, this book is set in Chicago, Illinois, and it's a story about 3 kids who participate in a very unique contest. Now, the story is told from the 3 kids' points of view, and their chapters alternate back and forth. The 3 kids are Melissa, who's kind of a nobody. There's Bondi, who's a show-off, and then there's Wilf, which is short for Wilford. He's a slacker. Well, the kids meet for the first time in a downtown Chicago office building, and this is where they go to find out more about the contest. Everyone is given a manila envelope, and in the envelope they find several things: a cell phone, a camera, an ATM card, and 3 clues to places in Chicago. Now, the kids are told, this is all very hush-hush, don't tell anybody about it. And the idea of the contest is to use the clues to discover where these landmarks are, go to the landmark, go to the place, take a picture of it, and then report back. And the first one to solve all the clues will win, are you ready for it? A $10,000 scholarship. Whoa! And they're also given a driver that will take them wherever they want to go downtown Chicago. Now, this was a fun mystery for me to read for several reasons. The author uses different fonts throughout the book, so that was kind of fun to read. We get to read the lists the kids make, various newspaper articles, and text and emails that the characters send to each other. So, also what's fun is that these are real landmarks that you can visit when you go to Chicago. But then we start to wonder, why are these unlikely kids chosen to participate in this contest? And who's really in charge of the contest? And is this really on the up and up, or is it a sham? Remember, the name of the book is The Ambrose Deception. At the beginning of our next book, Raoul's grandfather tells him, find something that you're good at and then be the best at it. And Raoul thinks, that's pretty good advice. But actually, he's looking for any sort of advice that he can, helpful hints that he can get. He's very nervous about starting middle school. And it doesn't help that Brent the bully is constantly picking on him and hassling him. Oh, he just can't stand it. So grandfather tells him a story about Grandma. It seems that back in the day, Grandma was the only woman taking engineering courses. And all the guys in the class were picking on her. Girls aren't smart enough to be engineers, they told her. Well, Grandma showed them. She became the top student in the class, and she got the job that everybody else wanted. Ha ha ha. Well, Raoul thinks, hey, if Grandma can do it, I can do it. And then he started thinking, what am I good at? So he asked his best friend Chelsea to help him decide what was he good at. And he tried various things. He went out for football, he tried acting, he joined some math competitions, always looking for something that he was good at. Where is Raoul going to find his niche? Now, Raoul's family is from India, and I learned a lot about Indian customs and the culture from reading this book. And I enjoyed it. And one thing that I learned is that the Indian word for grandfather is Bhai, which is spelled B-H-A-I. And this is what Raoul calls his grandfather throughout the book. And we wonder, what will Raoul be the best at? Her dad is black, her mom is white, and Isabella feels blended. And then it's not just because of the color of her skin. Her whole life seems blended. After her folks got divorced, the custody agreement said that Isabella would have to spend 1 week at Dad's house and the next week at Mom's house. Exchange days are on Sundays. Isabella hates Sundays. Well, one good thing, she doesn't have to change schools each week. That's one constant in her life. Another constant is hanging with her best friends, Heather and Amani. A third constant is music. Isabella plays the piano very well, and she's practicing a lot for an upcoming and very important piano recital. But you know how life is. Things change. You know, something happens to Amani at school, and it sparks some racial tensions. And then Isabella's folks decide that they're going to get remarried, but not to each other. And there goes all hope that Isabella had that her folks might get back together again. That's not going to happen now. But one cool thing, one good thing that happens because of these marriages is that now Isabella is going to have a very cool big brother, stepbrother. His name is Darren, and Isabella and Darren like doing stuff together, like especially going out to get ice cream. And then Isabella and Darren are involved in an incident with the police, which might just jeopardize her chance to participate in her piano recital. Why, oh why does her life have to be so blended? The boy at the back of the class is a book about friendship, and it's set in London, England, where the author lives. I do need to tell you that the author uses some British terms that are not familiar to us. For example, when she's talking about money, she talks about pounds and pence instead of dollars and cents like we would. But you know what? You use context clues and you'll be able to figure out what they're talking about. I have confidence in you. Well, it's about the third week of school and a new boy comes to the classroom. His name is Ahmet and he is a refugee from Syria. Now the author tells us that, that a refugee is someone who has to leave their homeland, their country, because of war or natural disasters. It's no longer safe to be there. Ahmet loses track of his family. He doesn't know where they are. And right now he's living with a foster family. Ahmet does not speak English, so he has a translator or interpreter sitting with him at school, and this person helps him to understand what's happening around him. Now the narrator and the friends of Josie, Michael, and Tom decide that they're going to do everything they can to make Ahmet feel more welcome. So some of the things they do is after school they give him some gifts like fruit and stickers. They play with him at recess, especially soccer, and they find out that Ahmet is a fantastic soccer player. And they also defend him against Brendan, the bully, out on the playground. And then the friends learn of a new rule that's going into effect in England, and that may keep Ahmet's family, even if they're found, this may keep them from coming to England to live with Ahmet. Well, the friends decide this is not acceptable, and they decide to take the matter to the top, and I mean the very top. They are going to go to meet with the Queen of England, and they come up with the greatest plan in the world. Will the Queen be able to reunite the family of the boy at the back of the class? Have you ever heard of dragons in a bag? Well, Jackson hadn't either, until he met a grumpy old woman by the name of Ma. Now, Ma and Jackson are not related, but Ma did help raise Jackson's mother. So one day, Mama drops Jackson off at Ma's place, and she has some business to take care of for the day, but Ma really doesn't want Jackson there. She's busy. And Jackson really doesn't want to spend the day with a cranky old woman that he's never met before. But he is very intrigued by a mysterious box sitting on Ma's table. It turns out the box is from Madagascar. And as you're probably guessing, the box contains baby dragons. Well, the reason that Ma is so busy is that she has to transport the dragons to a place where there's more magic. It isn't safe for them to stay there. And Jackson volunteers to be her helper. But right from the start, bad things start to happen. For example, the transporter is on the fritz. It's not working correctly. Ma gets stuck in a dimension with dinosaurs, and the dragons are not content to stay in the bag. Then a man by the name of Trouble comes along and offers his help. His name, Trouble, should tell you something about him, and you start to wonder, what else could go wrong? Well, I won't tell you exactly what goes wrong next, but it's something major. And I will tell you that the reason that there are dragons in the bag is that Ma is a witch. In our next book, we get to read letters from the Desk of Zoe Washington. Now, on her birthday, Zoe receives a letter, and she's shocked because it's from her biological father, Marcus. Now, she's never had any contact with Marcus before. It seems that he was convicted of a terrible crime, and he's in jail. And for that reason, her mom and her stepdad do not want her to have any contact with him. But Zoe has reached an age where she's curious about Marcus, and she wants to learn more about him. And so she secretly starts writing to him. They become pen pals. And, you know, Marcus swears that he's innocent, that he would never have done something like this. And Zoe wants to believe him. And as Zoe starts digging into the case, she realizes that Marcus did not really have a fair trial. And there may be someone out there who could provide an alibi for him and would also help get him out of jail. Zoe has something else going on in her life besides playing detective and trying to get justice for Marcus. She loves to bake. And it is her dream that someday she will be on that reality television show, the Kids Bake Challenge, which can be found on the Food Network. And to prove just how serious she is about wanting to be on this show, that this is her goal, she gets a job working at a cupcake bakery. And she has dreams of inventing new cupcake flavors and fantastic, spectacular decorations for those cupcakes. But working at the bakery isn't exactly what she thought it would be like. And also, we start to wonder, what do cupcakes have to do with getting justice for Marcus and getting him out of the jail? Well, maybe we'll find the answers on the Desk of Zoe Washington. A Good Kind of Trouble is a story about friendship and standing up for what you believe in. Shayla has been best friends with Julia and Isabella forever. Now, this is really a diverse group. Shayla is African American, Julia is Asian, and Isabella's family is from Puerto Rico. They call themselves the United Nations. Now, the girls have just started junior high, and they're kind of bummed out because they don't have any classes together. And they do meet during break time, and every noon they eat together at their special table. But you know how things are. friendships and things change as kids get older. Shayla leaves her comfort zone and she joins the track team. Isabella gets her braces off and she does some things to change her appearance, and Shayla has to admit she's rather jealous of just how pretty Isabella is. Julia, over the summer, joined a sports team with some other girls, Asian girls from her church. And now, some days, she goes to eat with her Asian friends. What's up with that? Shayla's starting to think they're going to be called the Divided Nations. Shayla's English teacher has asked them to keep an observation journal this year. She says that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in their lives and she wants them to be aware of what's going on and record it. And honestly, Shayla kind of enjoys writing down her thoughts and feelings, and we get to read her journal entries. There was one that really stood out for me. See what you think. If you're never afraid, then how do you know when you're brave? Kind of deep thoughts there. Well, then there's a controversial decision in the community, and it causes temperatures to rise, and it sparks protests. And Shayla has to decide just where she stands on the issue. And also, will her friends stand with her? And is there ever such a thing as a good kind of trouble? Inkling is a name of an ink splat that comes to life. You're going, huh? Here's how it happened. Ethan's dad is a very famous artist and graphic novelist. And one night, the ink in his sketchbook starts to flow together. And when it reaches the crease, bloop, it pops off the page. And only the family cat saw it happen. Now, Inkling learns about the world by looking at pictures and by reading books. And as Inkling moves across a page, he soaks up the ink and erases everything behind him. He does this to Ethan's math book too. Whoops. Inkling learns how to communicate with Ethan, which is a good thing because both Ethan and his dad need some help. Although Ethan's dad has written many well-known graphic novels, right now he's having a writer's block. He can't think of anything new or creative to write about. And Ethan is in a study group at school. And as part of the project, everybody has to do something for the project. And Ethan's job is to draw the pictures for the presentation. All of his friends think, hey, his dad's this famous artist. You know, he should be a good drawer too. Wrong. Ethan has trouble drawing stick figures. Oh, what's he gonna do? He could ask his dad, but lately Dad's been kind of down in the dumps and distracted, and he just doesn't want to bother Dad right now. But he doesn't want to let his team down, so what's he going to do? So, will it be da-da-da, Inkling to the rescue? Or would that be cheating? I haven't an inkling. Look Both Ways is a very unique book. I've never read anything quite like this before. It says on the front here, a tale told in 10 blocks. And when I saw that, I thought, what's that about? What's that supposed to mean? And as I began reading, I realized that instead of one story, there's 10 short stories that are all connected. How they're connected is that all the main characters go to the same school. And they don't necessarily know each other. And all the main action happens on the same day after school. Now you're going to meet a lot of different kids. First, there's Jasmine and TJ. And they have a discussion about what our innards are made of. Dust and boogers? Then there's Bit and his friends, who turn 90 cents into $9 just like that. And you're going to be surprised at what they use the money to buy. Then there's Pia and her skateboard, who have to deal with bullies. Fatima, who doesn't look both ways, including up and down, and she lands splat on the sidewalk. There's Bryson and Ty, who are gamers who always have each other's back. Simeon, who carries Kenzie on his back. He gives him a piggyback ride to the front doors every day so Kenzie doesn't get trampled in the hallways. Satchmo, who's afraid of dogs and has good reason to be. Cynthia, who's the class clown, who enjoys making people laugh. Greg, who needs a little help from his friends before he goes to talk to a special girl. And Canton, who watches his mom do her job every day after school as the crossing guard. Now I'm going to tell you, several of these stories have surprise endings that you will not see coming. If you read carefully, you are going to find connection among the stories, and I have a challenge for you. There's one phrase that appears in all 10 stories. I want you to see if you can find it, but I'll tell you, you need to look both ways. I have to say that our next book, The Strangers, I found a little strange. And it isn't because it had its alternating chapters. I mean, we've had those already, these book talks. It was that it seemed like every chapter there was a twist or turn to the plot. Oh, it's hard to keep track of. I mean, it was just constant action. Whoa. The story begins as the three Greystone kids are coming home from school. And the kids' names are Finn, Emma, and Chess. And they're in grades 2, 4, and 6. And as they come bounding into the house, they head to the kitchen where they expect to find their mom with a snack, their after-school snack. And when they get to the kitchen, they find Mom standing at the counter, shaking her head and saying, "No, no, no!" It almost seems like Mom is in shock. And this is where it gets really weird. It turns out Mom's been watching this news report about these 3 kids in Arizona who've been kidnapped. And where it's weird is that these 3 kids each have the same first name, middle name, and birthdays of the 3 Greystone kids. How could that be? Well, that night, Mom tells them that she has to go on a business trip. And they're going to be staying with her friend, Ms. Morales. Now, Ms. Morales has a daughter named Natalie, who is just a year older than Chess. And she is a whiz on the computer and on the internet, which turns out to be a skill that they are going to need. Well, pretty soon, the 4 kids are following a series of clues that leads them to hidden rooms, secret tunnels, coded messages, and boxes of money. Now, what they're trying to do is find out what has happened to Mrs. Greystone. Now, I need to tell you something. This book does not end the story. There's some more of the story in the next 2 books. It's a series of 3 books that tells the story of the strangers. Our next book is called The Miscalculations of Lightning Girl. Lucy is known as Lightning Girl because when she was 8 years old, she was struck by lightning. Now the good news is it didn't kill her. The bad news is it kind of messed up her brain. The good news is now she's a math genius. The bad news is she has a need to do some kind of quirky things, like taking Clorox wipes and scrubbing all the surfaces because she's worried about germs. And also, before she sits down, she stands up, sits down, 3 times before she can stay seated. And if she doesn't do these things, numbers march through her brain and she can't think of anything else. Well, because of this, Lucy has been homeschooled by Grandma for the last several years. And now that she's 12 years old, intellectually, she's ready to go to college. But emotionally and socially, not at all. So Grandma tells her before she can go to college, she's going to have to go to middle school. And while she's there, she's going to have to make 1 friend, read 1 book, and participate in 1 activity. Now, Lucy thinks that middle school is going to be torture for her, and it kind of is. As you can imagine, the kids make fun of all her quirky little mannerisms, and she hides her special math skills because she doesn't want to stand out any more than she already does. Now, surprisingly, she makes a friend right away. Wendy sort of finds her, and she helps Lucy achieve the goals that Grandma has set. And Wendy even convinces Lucy to volunteer at the local animal shelter, where Lucy falls in love with a very special dog. Now, as she's working with the animals, Lucy starts to think to herself and wonder, has Lightning Girl's life been full of miscalculations? Prairie Lotus is set in the Dakota Territory back in the 1880s. It seems like forever that Papa and Hannah have been riding across the country in their covered wagon. Their destination is a little frontier town called LaForge, and they're both very anxious to get there. Papa has plans to open a store there, and Hannah has heard that there is a school in LaForge. Hannah has never been to school before. She's always been taught at home by Mama, but Mama's died. And one of the last things that Hannah had promised her mother is that someday she would go to a real school and get her diploma. But she knows that there might be some problems. You see, Mama was Chinese, which makes Hannah half Chinese. And she knows that there might be some people who would be reluctant to let their kids go to school with someone who doesn't look like them, who isn't white. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens. But the caring teacher just might come up with a good compromise. Hannah has dreams of becoming a dressmaker like Mama, who has taught her how to sew. Hannah has some wonderful ideas and sketches for the dresses that she would like to make someday. But is she going to be able to convince Papa to let her pursue her dreams? To show Papa that she's up for the challenge? But she wonders, will people want to come and order dresses from someone who doesn't look like them? And will she ever get to graduate and get her diploma? Well, you're going to have to read Prairie Lotus. Whoa. If you like spooky mysteries, Small Spaces is the book for you. This story begins on a beautiful October day, and Ollie just can't wait to get outside and enjoy the fall weather. So she rides her bike down to her favorite spot by the river, and when she gets there, she finds there's a woman there already, and this woman seems to be crying. And she's holding a book out over the water, and it looks like she's going to drop it. And Ollie calls out, wait, you don't have to do that. You could donate the book if you're trying to get rid of it. And the woman turns around, and there's tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. I have to do this. It's part of the bargain. Well, no, Ollie doesn't understand. And before the book falls into the water, Ollie is able to grab it, and she scampers away with the book. And as she's leaving, she hears the woman call after her, "After dark, seek out small spaces." Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Well, when Ollie gets home, she starts to read the book, and she realizes it's a very old book. It was written way back in the 1890s, and it's a story about a family who makes a very disastrous deal with a smiling man. And Ollie has to admit, the book kind of creeps her out, but she tells herself, well, it's just a story. It didn't really happen. Did it? Well, the next day, even though it's a rainy, misty day, Ollie's class goes on a field trip to a nearby farm. And weird things start to happen right from the start. And on the way home, the bus breaks down. And wouldn't you know it, it happens in a spot where nobody has cell reception. Well, the teacher decides he's going to hike back to the farm to get some help, and he tells the kids, stay on the bus. But it hasn't been very long before Ollie and two friends, Coco and Brian, are off the bus and start exploring the nearby woods. Now, I'm not going to tell you all the scary things that happen in those woods, but I will tell you it involves scarecrows. And Ollie is glad that she remembers the advice from the woman that after dark she should seek out small spaces. Some Places More Than Others is a story about the importance of family and finding your roots. Amara lives in Oregon, and the only thing she wants for her birthday present is a chance to go to New York City. She wants to see where her dad grew up, where he went to school. She wants to meet her grandpa Earl in person instead of just talking to him on FaceTime. She wants to get to know her Aunt Tracy better. She wants to hang out with her cousins, Nina and Ava. But her mom says, nope, you're too young to go to New York City. And then Amara gets an assignment at school where they're supposed to do a project about their family heritage. And how they're supposed to do it is by interviewing family members. And that convinces Mom that, okay, you can go with Dad to New York on his next business trip there. But when she gets to New York City, it isn't exactly how she thought it would be. She finds out that Dad and Grandpa Earl have not spoken for 12 years. What's going on there? How did they grow apart? And is there anything she can do to fix it? Her cousin Ava isn't very welcoming at all. She makes fun of Amara for wanting to take all these pictures all the time, and she calls Amara a baby and a spoiled brat. Baby? Well, Amara's going to show Ava just who's a baby. And I have to admit, she does something pretty dangerous. But she does learn more about her family and her heritage. And when she gets back home, she tells her baby sister, "You come from greatness. You come from strength. And I learned this in some places more than others." Stay is a story about a family who's homeless. Through no fault of their own, Piper's mom and dad, her parents, have both lost their jobs, and then they lose their home. And now they're in a new city, and they are trying to make a new start. Now, luckily, they find a place to stay at the local shelter. And Dylan and her little brother Dylan and Piper try to make the best of the situation, although it's very hard. Piper is thrilled when she finds out that there's a Firefly Girls troop that meets every week at the shelter. And it would be sort of like our Girl Scouts. Now, she was a Firefly girl at her old school, and with this group, she immediately finds friendship and acceptance. Stay is also the story about a very adorable little dog called Baby. Baby's owner, Jewel, is also homeless. There's a very strict rule that says no pets at the shelter or the community kitchen, and Jewel would rather go hungry and sleep in the park with Baby rather than get rid of her dog. She loves him just that much. Now, Piper has met Jewel and Baby when she's gone to the park, and she immediately fell in love with Baby. He's just that cute. And then Piper finds out that Jewel got sick, and she's sent to the hospital. And as she's wheeled away in the ambulance, she tells Baby to stay. And Baby does, for as long as he can. When Piper finds out about Jewel being hospitalized, she knows that she has to do something. Something that will get Jewel and Baby back together. They need each other that much. But what can she do? What can Piper do? She's just a kid. Well, maybe she can get the other Firefly girls to help her. They could use their detective skills and find a way and a place that Jewel and Baby can stay together again. If you like baseball or softball, then Team Players is the book for you. Cassie has always considered herself a team player. She enjoys playing a variety of sports. And now it's summertime, which means it's softball season. Yay! Cassie is a leader on and off the field, and she likes to fix things for people. She wants everybody to be happy. But this year, she's got her work cut out for her. Sarah's a new girl on the team, and Sarah has autism. That means that her brain is wired just a little bit differently. And for example, when she goes out to outfield, she feels that she has to stand just a certain way when she's in the outfield. When she comes up to bat, she goes through this routine before the pitcher throws the first pitch. Despite never being on a team before, Sarah is a fantastic player. She just seems to have this natural athletic talent. And then at the beginning of the season, there's a controversial play or call on a play, and it involves Sarah. And pretty soon, the team is divided. Half of the team isn't talking to the other half of the team. And Cassie thinks, come on, man. Softball is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be this way. Come on. Cassie has some guy friends. There's Jack, Gus, and Teddy. And they're also having a bummer summer. They have a new coach for their baseball team, and the guys just can't get used to his coaching style. And it's gotten to the point where things don't change, they're going to quit. How can they have a summer without baseball? Oh, they just don't know what to do. Maybe you've read some other books by this author, Mike Lupica, and you may recognize these characters' names because Mike has written several books. There's a series of books starring these 4 characters. I would recommend all of them to you because in each book you're going to find kids who are team players. The unsung hero of Birdsong, USA takes place in a small town, the small town of Birdsong, South Carolina, in the summer of 1946, which is soon after World War II has ended. The story begins on Gabriel's 12th birthday, and he is so excited because his folks have just given him a brand new Schwinn bicycle, and he can't wait to show it off to his best friend Patrick, and he gets permission to ride across town to show Patrick. Well, I have to tell you, on the way over, Gabriel is not paying attention. I think he's spending too much time showing off his new bike. Well, he's not paying attention and he runs through a red light and he almost gets hit by a car. Fortunately, an African-American man by the name of Mr. Meriwether Hunter pushes Gabriel out of the way just in time and nobody gets hurt. But the bike isn't in that great a shape anymore. Fortunately, Gabriel has some tools with him and he's able to fix the bike up so it looks almost as good as new. Now, because of this incident, Gabriel and Meriwether form an instant bond. And despite the difference in their ages, they become friends. Well, Gabriel finds out that Meriwether is looking for a job, and Gabriel has just the solution for him. You see, Gabriel's dad owns the local gas station and auto shop, and he's looking for a mechanic, and he hires Meriwether. Turns out Meriwether is a wonderful mechanic. It's a win-win situation for everyone. So now that Meriwether and Gabriel are friends, Gabriel starts to notice and he becomes more aware that the whites in town are very disrespectful to the blacks. And there's signs around that says whites only by the public restrooms and drinking fountains. Gabriel knows that this isn't right, but what can he do? He's just a kid, right? And then Meriwether lets a secret slip out. A secret about what he did and how he served during the war. A secret that could spell a lot of trouble for Meriwether and his family. Is there anything Gabriel can do to help his friend? And by the way, just who is the unsung hero of Birdsong, USA? Where the Watermelons Grow is a story about Della and her family who live in North Carolina on a farm where the watermelons grow. And things haven't been going so well for the family. There's been a drought, and the crops are really hurting from the lack of rain. Then the tractor breaks down. But the worst thing is Mama's brain sickness is back. Now this sickness makes Mama think that there are bad germs everywhere. And there's voices in her head that only Mama can hear. Now Della does what she can to help Mama get better. She does more chores around the house and the farm. She takes care of her little sister Miley. She even goes to the next door neighbor looking for some healing honey. Nothing seems to help. And Della's so worried that Mama's going to have to go back to that special hospital where she's been before. Della and Daddy don't want anybody to know that Mama's sickness has gotten worse. Della won't even tell her best friend about it. I think Della and Daddy need to remember the words of an old song that says, "You get by with a little help from your friends." Because there are family and friends who will listen, who are willing to help, even where the watermelon grows. Wonderland is told from the point of view of 3 different characters. And again, their chapters alternate back and forth. There's Rose, who worries about everything. There's Mavis, who's just full of ideas. And then there's Henry, who's a stray dog. Mavis's mom just can't seem to find the job that she likes, and so they move a lot. That keeps Mavis from having something that she's always wanted, a best friend. But now things are looking up because Mavis's mom has accepted a job working at a fancy smancy house as their housekeeper. And there's a girl who lives in the family, Rose, who's just Mavis's age. And maybe Mavis and Rose can become best friends. They really need each other. Well, once Mavis and her mom get settled, Rose takes Mavis on a tour of their ritzy neighborhood. And they end up at the gatehouse so that Rose can introduce Mavis to her friend, Mr. Duffy. Mr. Duffy says that his job is to keep the riffraff out of the fancy neighborhood. But Mr. Duffy is very sad. His dog has just died. And Mavis thinks, well, the solution is obvious. Get another dog. But Mr. Duffy says, no way. I'm not getting a new dog. I'm too old for it. He's also worried that he couldn't handle the heartache if something would happen to the dog. Well, Mavis thinks that she's going to just have to think of something else, another plan to cheer up Mr. Duffy. And she also wants to come up with a plan to keep Rose from being such a worrywart so she can enjoy life. And then we start to wonder, what role or what part does Henry the dog play in these plans? And where is and what is Wonderland? Words on Fire began way back in 1893 in the small European country known as Lithuania. Now, powerful Russia is trying to dominate its small neighbor. And they decided that the best way to do that is to destroy the culture, which includes burning books. Audra's parents are part of a resistance group that want to stop that from happening. And one of the things that they do is that they smuggle books to the neighboring villages to get to people who are eager to read books again in their own language. Well, the Russian soldiers, known as Cossacks, are starting to get suspicious about Audra's parents, and one day they show up to arrest Mama and Papa. Audra is able to escape by hiding in the woods behind their house. And the only thing she's able to take with her, is Papa's leather shoulder bag. And hidden in the bottom of it is a very special book. Mama is able to tell Audra to go to the next village and find a woman by the name of Milda who will help her. Well, Audra does find Milda, who takes her in, and there she meets another young book smuggler by the name of Lucas. And thus begins a dangerous adventure where Audra and Lucas are trying to outrun and outsmart the Cossack soldiers. And one time I will tell you, it involves a snake. Reading this book kind of made me sad because I found out that this really did happen. There really was book burning in Lithuania back in the 1890s. But it also made me happy because now we can read all the books we want in our language. Look at all these books that are available to you, and because our words are not on fire. I hope that you found at least one book that you just can't wait to read. And I hope that you make it a goal that you are going to read at least 2 or more of these books so that you can vote for the next Iowa Children's Choice Award. Happy reading and read on!